Hey everyone, I know we're just getting started here at the top of the hour, so we'll wait for people to start joining and we'll get started in just a few minutes, but thank you all for joining. Really excited about the conversation today, and we'll probably get started here in just a few minutes, give a few more minutes for people to join. Looks like we already have about 30 of you here in the room, which is great. Thank you all again for joining, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. As we wait for people to join, I just wanted to throw out there, as you guys have questions, please throw those in the chat. We will have some time at the end of the session today to answer questions for those questions that have been brought up. We also have some questions that people have submitted ahead of time, so thank you so much for doing that. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. One other thing, as everyone's joining, would love to know where everyone is joining from. So if you wanted to just throw in your location, it's always interesting to see where people are joining in from, and where our message is ultimately resonating. So if you feel inclined to share, throw in the chat, city, state, province, location, etc. We'd love to understand where each of you are.
Mark, can you enable chat? Chat's disabled.
I see that the chat is disabled, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that here. Give me 1 second here. It is 12:02, so we're going to get started. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and enable the chat as we go, but the Q&A is open for questions that are coming in. So please go ahead and put those questions in there, and I'll get the chat enabled here in just a second. I don't want to hold us up, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so everyone should be able to see my screen now. Brent, Vishal, you want to give me a thumbs up? Everyone's good? Perfect. So today's webinar is about the Pictory MCP server, and ultimately how you can use Pictory's MCP server and AI API to create video workflows that can automate your video creation process. I'm very excited to have our guests on today, and I'll introduce them in just a second. But just as a high level, for those of you that maybe are joining this and haven't experienced or seen Pictory before, Pictory is an AI video creation platform, and we really feel like it's the easiest way to create professional videos out of a variety of different starting points. That could be from text, scripts, blogs, long video, screen recordings, PowerPoints, and so much more. So we'll talk about that a lot today. I see some people that are raising their hands, and we'll get to those questions a little bit later. But without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce you to our hosts today. We have Vashall Chalana. Vashall is the CTO and co-founder of Pictory. He was the former CTO of Wind Shuttle for I think it was about a decade, if I'm not mistaken. So a number of years. He has been instrumental in helping us build this MCP server and our public APIs, which is basically what the MCP server is built off of. Currently based in Seattle, Washington, along with myself and the rest of the Pictory leadership team. We also have Brent Blowitt. Brent is an enterprise AI strategist for New Resources Consulting. Formerly spent some time at CDW, if you're familiar with that company. He's also had a hand in enterprise solutions for over 400 companies and has worked with over 180 customers in the last 24 months on their AI journeys, and has really been spending a lot of time in this MCP server world. So super excited to have both of you guys on here. Thank you so much for joining us today, lending your expertise to this webinar, and ultimately talking to all of our guests today about what MCP servers mean, what they can do for them from an automation perspective, and even agentic AI workflows. So thank you so much for joining. So I'll have Vishal go ahead and start, and kind of walk us through AI video creation. So Vishal, do you want to go ahead and kick us off and kind of talk about how we started, how Pictory started, ultimately what this has kind of been evolved into, and where we see the future of AI video creation?
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the introduction. And first of all, welcome everyone to this webinar about how we can quickly and easily create video workflows through Pictory's newly launched MCP server. Very, very excited about this offering. So firstly, we have had an API offering for a while. So that's the first thing to know. It's I think at least for 3 or more years we have had our API offering, and we have been selling it to our users all across the world. It's a super comprehensive set of APIs that a lot of customers use to automate their video workflows currently. And so it's pretty complete in the sense that all the different use cases that we offer are supported through the API, and even some more. So so that API offering has been there, but one of the challenges that we have seen is that as you have to orchestrate more and more complex and challenging workflows, the whole orchestration process of transforming the payloads, polling statuses, error handling, all of that gets very complex, and it's time taking, and ultimately it leads to what I call is the API fatigue, because you end up calling so many APIs in different loops, and constantly checking statuses and all that stuff. So it gets really hard, especially if it's a complex automation workflow that you're trying to build. So moving forward, that's where we are introducing Pictory's MCP server. Mark, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so we are introducing this Pictory's MCP server. Most of you probably know what MCP is. It's the Model Context Protocol. It's a standard that has been evolving, which exposes capabilities or exposes context over to large language models. Now, why do LLMs need this additional capabilities? So think about this. If you ask ChatGPT today that how is the weather in Seattle, right? It would not know it, because it's not trained on today's date, right? And so what it would probably do is it would invoke a tool, and it's almost like an API call that it would make to find how the weather is, and then it would present the weather to you. So MCP is this standard protocol that has evolved recently, and it standardized the calling of these tools by any LLM, and not just tools. If you think about it, it's additional context, right? It could be a part of a document that it's not trained on. So you can pass that context over to LLM so that it can answer questions from that context. So we created this MCP server. It's built on this MCP protocol. It has a whole set of tools that support different kinds of AI video workflows, and you would see this here in a minute in a demo that I would do. If you move to the next slide, Mark. Yeah. So we basically built this MCP server because these video pipelines are complex, and they were only available to developers who could call these APIs. But now we are trying to make it available to AI assistants, agents, end users, LLMs, and all kinds of automation tools. Whichever tool kind of supports this MCP protocol, we are able to give this capability directly to them. And uh, the the next slide is kind of, yeah, and exactly. So you don't need this whole deep API knowledge for doing this anymore. So this is how it kind of integrates. It works with any client uh, that supports MCP protocol. A couple of examples here, like Claude and Cursor, and it has this natural language driven process, which again you would see in a minute here, and no custom code needed at all. So that's kind of the basic integration of how this is going to work. And a typical workflow is going to look like this, right? If a user asks, for example, to create a video, right? It would, behind the scenes, the client, which is your Claude client, or Cursor, or whatever client you're using, it tries to orchestrate the whole thing, and the entire complexity of the actual execution and video generation is kind of handled by this MCP server, right? But the clients, these large language model clients are really smart in building this orchestration. So they can do the orchestration, and the complexity is kind of hidden through the MCP server. So this is how it would look. Again, it'll get clearer as we go into the demo. So yeah, I'll Mark, if I can share my screen. Okay. So first of all, this is a link which we will share with you, is how you would actually install our MCP server. This example is built on Claude client, but it actually applies to any of the clients that support MCP protocol. So you would kind of download this DTX file, which is an MCP server for Claude client. So once you download it, let me really quickly. In my case, it's installed already. So, but you would see something like this, where instead of this uninstall, you would see install the client, and it would install and ask for a couple of configurations, which I can quickly show you here. these are the different things it's going to ask you. It needs a Pictory client ID, a Pictory client secret, and a user ID. The API URL will be pre-filled. So if you don't have these already, you can we'll share a link where you can get this client ID and client secret, your own client secret and client ID, which is needed for calling Pictory API. And it also links to your user ID within the Pictory web app. So once you do this configuration, and you're back in the Claude client. This is the Claude desktop client. And you probably need the latest download of this, because that's where you can install the DTX. It's supported only on the latest Claude client. So once you have it set here, I'm going to simply ask it to So at this point, it's asking to call the tool to see what the templates are available for me. And this is in my Pictory user domain. So it will only show the templates that I have published. And Mark, can you confirm that you see that my Claude desktop here? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to ask it, show me the details of Pictory welcome template. So once again, it's querying the template details from our backend, and it's showing what the template name is, template ID is, what are the audio settings for it. You can even see the AI voice, and what are some of the variables in the template. And you can see that, and you'll see again output video in a minute, but it has these things that can be replaced in the video, and you can even see what the scenes look like, right? And even there is the detail of the visual, like this one says video of a person waving in green park plus some brand images. So this kind of gives you, it's a short video, 5 scenes, and it has all the details, and it has kind of given to you. So now what I'm going to ask, I actually have another MCP server that I have installed here, which is for HubSpot. And if you know, HubSpot is a CRM system, and I created my HubSpot account. It has these 4 different contacts in it right now. So so here's what I'm going to do. Like to create personalized welcome videos for all my contacts in HubSpot. And I'll ask it to create only video previews, because video rendering kind of takes a while. So we'll just create the preview here and show the output in a table. So at this point, this is, as you can imagine, it's a whole bunch of things, right? It's calling HubSpot to get the user details. It's calling HubSpot to get my contacts. It's creating Pictory storyboard from the template that it automatically kind of selected. Here I did tell it a personalized welcome video for this. It's a welcome video, so I kind of gave it that, but it can actually select the right template automatically as well. And this particular orchestration is pretty complex if you think about it, right? Because there's a lot going on. There are different APIs being called. There are different transformation of payloads happening. There is statuses that are being polled, and it's also connecting to HubSpot APIs behind the scenes. So it's a pretty complex thing that's going on behind the scenes, but the entire orchestration is being done by this Claude code, and the MCP server is kind of doing the execution behind the scenes. So I think at this point it should have, so it's created the previews, and I think it's going to draft the output here real soon. There you go.
So Vishal, as you wait for this to, kind of load, what you've just done, what would that typically have taken to do something like that, right? From a manual perspective. I mean, you're talking about creating 4 or 5, 6 videos here for each individual person, and simply interacting with an LLM via prompts. Kind of compare and contrast the time-saving nature here, and just the ability to, work smarter as opposed to harder.
Yeah, I mean, as I explained, just to automate this flow with Pictory APIs, it would have taken many weeks to just kind of build the entire workflow and then make it available. But if I go to actually creating these videos, I think Mark, you can give a much better idea of how much each video would have taken time to create manually. But real quick here, it's given me job IDs. It hasn't given me the links to the videos. And LLMs can do that sometimes, but I did this earlier, so I can kind of share that with you. So it gave me this, right? It's along with the preview links, and I'll quickly open how these look. You can see that this is personalized because the name here is very specific, and it changes based on the contact it picked. But I'll just play this.
Hello, Brian. You just unlocked the power to turn words into wow. At HubSpot, as a VP of Sales in Technology, you're the voice behind the brand. And now you've got the videos to match. From your scripts, blogs, PowerPoints, or even Zoom calls, we bring stories to life. This is your creative superpower. Let's make something unforgettable.
Yeah, so as you see, it is completely personalized. If I open just one more of this one, say here.
Hello, Terry. You just unlocked the power to turn words into wow. At Philips, as an HR director in electronics, you're the voice behind the brand. And now you've got the videos to match.
So this here only has a few variables that changed, as you see, and this was all based on data being picked from HubSpot. So the title, the company name, the industry, all of these were kind of picked and replaced in the final video preview that you see. But it can be a way more complex thing. It can have a lot more variables. It could be data coming from, even HubSpot would have so much more data that you could actually put in this video. So fully personalized videos created within minutes. Yeah, Mark. So give us an idea of how long this could take.
I mean, video creation from just a generalized perspective. Typically, the rule of thumb is for every 1 minute of finished video, it typically takes an hour of editing to make that happen. So, like that's using traditional video editing softwares, etc. That's not talking about what Pictory's web app client, but just from a general use case perspective. To be able to create 5 or 6 videos in a matter of seconds, just with a few prompts, and being able to interact with something like Claude Desktop and give it, some context, some commands, and then have those videos spit out, I think is a huge time saver for just about anybody. So, yeah. As just to kind of recap, right? The benefits of Pictory's MCP server, it's really about simplifying your workflow. Vishal showed you a single workflow, which is creating a personalized video for HubSpot outreach, from if you're a sales person or, marketing person. That's just one use case. I think Brent is probably going to talk about all these various use cases that he sees from an enterprise perspective. This can work with your existing AI assistants, can unlock automation capabilities, etc. So, from a workflow perspective, from automation perspective, just from the ability to tap into what AI is giving us, and the ability to, complete tasks at a much faster rate, I definitely think it's a huge time saver. So thanks a lot, Vishal, for kind of walking through the setup of the Pictory MCP server. I know there's been some questions about, in the chat, about, how this could work from like an actual workflow perspective. And I think Brent is going to dive into a lot of that right now, just with everything that he's seen with enterprises leveraging this type of technology. So I know first time Vishal showed me our Pictory MCP server, I was absolutely blown away by what this means for organizations and enterprises that want to be able to connect all of these agents together. And Brent is really going to kind of dive into that. So Brent, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, first and foremost, to Pictory for having me on today. It's definitely an honor to continue to work with you in different enterprise accounts. I'll kind of level set a little bit because I've been kind of perusing the comments. This is going to be a little bit more oriented towards the enterprises, to the organizations that want to be able to do video at scale. We have done numerous projects together to be able to really scale this out to significant sizes. And large organizations, when they're generating videos, they sometimes work with marketing firms. An average video and cost to an enterprise is somewhere between $950 and $3,000 to be able to have the voiceover actors, the editors, the content, the creation, the stock photos. All of that stuff is combined into this platform. And so it would take about $3,000 to be able to provision, only costs about 15 cents in video creation. So the order of magnitude or scale that you can do hyper personalized videos for your customers, before you just create one video and send it out to everybody. But now you can actually talk about like what is their purchasing habits and what are the tools or the things that they're purchasing that you want to advertise. Or if you saw them in a specific section of your website, you can do customized videos highly tailored to that user experience. And so while we were creating one kind of short segment of video, I have seen this platform scale to large magnitudes and saving organizations millions of dollars in doing video creation. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. I do know that there's a wide variety of people that are on this webinar today. So I'm going to start out with some of the foundational basics, and then we're going to dive into the technology, into being able to understand how we can integrate with it even outside of like a Claude desktop or a ChatGPT. So let's kind of dive in here, Mark, to the next slide. So the first thing that I want to talk about is everybody's talking about agentic AI or agentic frameworks. And when we're working with an enterprise type of business, what we want to do is we want to be able to tell an agent to do something. And that's kind of what we saw with Claude, where he was asking like, hey, I'd like to create a video for these people or these subsets of people. And so these agents have instructions that are all behind the scenes. You don't have to actually see any of the code that you see on the screen here, and it will know how to invoke those tools or those skills to be able to start formulating what do I need to do for this person. And so if we go to the next slide here, it kind of breaks out a little bit deeper here where, you know, when you have agents or you're building out agents in an enterprise architecture, they all have different specialties. And so you could have like a product designer, an SEO agent, or a media analyst where you can say, search all of my pictures and be able to select, these are the pictures that I think would best align to this video. When you're manually doing that, that takes time, and it takes a quite amount of work to be able to align the right videos or the right stock photos that you might have in your enterprise to that image. And so what we do is we have agents that we can invoke to be able to either pull from your libraries or built into Pictory without any extra coding, they already do that for you. So they take a look at the scene of what you're saying you would like, and they reach out to a stock photo library or a video library and are able to render those videos dynamically for you based on the topic of what you're talking about. So if I'm talking about puppies, it's going to pull puppy pictures and puppy videos. If I'm talking about IT, it's going to pull more trendy, or AI, you're going to see a lot of robots in some of my videos. And so those are the types of things where while you can build it out dynamically and build it out with different agents, those agents have integrations, and then those integrations have tools you can consume. What this platform really allows us to do is it kind of shortcuts some of those extra steps that you have to do to be able to get to a high quality video for your customers. Talking about tools a little bit, tools are what the different agent integrations like Pictory expose to be able to allow us to consume and use in a development perspective. So if there's any developers on the line, I think the section is going to really speak to you a little bit more, where we'll say, hey, I want to get the templates. I want to know what templates are available that I can use. Templates are pre-structured content that we just fill in with words using AI. And the pre-structure can have different colors and tones, even your company logos. You can have a standardized beginning and ending to it. We've done it for, I'll say, mail delivery organizations to be able to build out different types of things specifically for like, hey, you need to get this specific package delivered. Here's the process to do that. And we've also done it for, not that I have a lot of hair, but hair cutting companies of saying, this was your last appointment. This is what you did. These are things that you would be able to get for this next appointment. So there's some really cool tools at scale that we're building out that based off of your company, we can consume that template, and then we can write and craft something specific to a user. So let's take a step forward again. And so there's one last step that is really important, and this is kind of like an up and coming thing that we're seeing in the industry around agentic AI or just artificial intelligence. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes when we're asking a question. And this is the telltale sign or the age-old problem of hot dogs. And so if I can ask what's the best way to treat a hot dog, I need to send that into a server that can figure out, am I talking about like a physically hot dog or like a hot dog that I can eat? And so as I step into this, into the next step here, I can have my agents be able to say, what do I do with this question? And then I route that question to clarify to say, oh, okay, I'm actually needing to understand from the user, do you mean a culinary or a veterinary type of hot dog? So if I step forward, the user types back veterinary, and then the intent router says, oh, I need to be able to send this over to my veterinary agent. And then it sends it to that veterinary agent to be able to do some work. And the reason why this reasoning is important is that's actually what you saw in Vishal's demo, is that it was automatically figuring out that reasoning of what step should I do next? Oh, now I need to do this. I need to pull these users. Okay, now I need to insert this first name and last name field into this video. And so where we would normally like highly curate this business flow for like intent routing and reasoning of like, hey, this is what the person's really asking for. The Pictory MCP server, on their back end, they have agents that figure that out for you. So you're not actually telling the agents to do this. It's really helping kind of flow it through the system and be able to have the end output in this scenario that they're talking about moving a dog to a cooler area versus treating a hot dog with like ketchup and mustard. But the cool part about this is their platform figures that out for us and is able to build these videos dynamically at scale. All right, we'll take a step forward into the next slide here. And so when I have worked with their traditional API, I've actually done a lot of work with their API in different demos and for different customers. And what really got me excited about the MCP server is when I'm doing traditional API integrations or when I'm actually doing full coding, I have to think through all the steps to be able to build out that video. So you'll see I have to create a video name, description, set the language, plan the background audio, the voiceover, the scenes, and I have to have that code, and you kind of see an excerpt of the storyboard creation on the right-hand side. To be able to complete that entire API integration, we're at about 1,066 lines of code to go from start to the render request to actually render the video. And so there's a lot of work that has to happen in a traditional API integration versus I think it was 3 commands that you sent in, or maybe 1, because you had like one really long sentence that you sent in to be able to get it to render a video. So let's take a step forward and I'll talk about MCP a little bit. So this is kind of getting to the big part of like, what is MCP? Why was this even created in the industry? Well, large enterprises were saying that there's all these really good tools that we can use out there, but we want to be able to simplify the interaction with them. So instead of me coding everything via REST API, making a call out, retrieving it back, creating a webhook to capture things, what we're doing now is I can take my internal agent or maybe Claude Desktop or ChatGPT or any of the other like Vertex AI. I can have them communicate to that MCP server and give it a task. And this is your task and what I want you to do. And then all of the stuff behind the scenes is plain text or JSON that's submitted into their server. And based off of the tasks that I give them, sometimes you use identity. It's actually recommended that you pass the user's identity in as well, so you know who's asking for the video. But just through doing that simple task request, you're able to get to a destination of a video, and that's pretty spectacular in comparison. And so much so, if I go to the next slide here, you'll see that when I'm actually building this out from intent to being able to plan everything in an enterprise fashion, it only is 198 lines, and that includes my comments in the code. That also includes some debugging logic that I left in there when I did the line count or character count. And so if I'm at an enterprise scale integrating with an enterprise backend system, it really shortens the amount of code that is really required. It's like 1/10 of the code, probably like 15% of the code, but who's counting? It really shortens the amount of code that's needed to get to a destination in an enterprise environment. And so you'll see that what I do is I have an intent, and my intent is create a 3-scene video from the provided script and return the final video. And then on the back end, I do tool discovery, I plan how I'm going to execute it, I execute on that plan, and then I complete the video. And the completed video comes out as a rendered video. And on the right-hand side, if anybody's familiar with LangGraph or Langsmith, specifically by a company called LangChain, you'll see that I actually show the full graph on the right-hand side where I discover the tools, I plan what my storyboard's going to be. So the text that's going to show up is all going to be dynamically generated using AI with whatever cues I add into it, like follow our company motto, make sure it aligns to our business vision. I can set all that in code. And so anytime that someone executes this, it every time consistently creates a video that falls within those guidelines, so to speak. And then you'll see that it actually executes on that plan. You'll see execute, pull, and then all the way at the very end, it gets the video. And so we have this code that is able to dynamically create this content on the fly for a specific use case. I know I said a lot of stuff. I'm going to step through one more slide and I'll get to a demo to kind of show how it all pieces together. So when we take a look at large enterprises or in an enterprise next evolution of MCP servers, it was kind of what I talked about a little bit before is if you have like, again, this is for a variety of people, like robotic process automation, or you want to be able to build out videos or invoke a tool to create videos for you, I can tap into that large data set and I can have my agent be able to say, hey, I need to be able to do these videos at scale. I need to do it for 500 users or 500 videos, or maybe I want to create videos for my products that I have on my website, and there's 500 products. What I can do is I can take that and hand it off to what I call my planning agents. And what they will do is they will plan the video based off of your product details. They'll plan the video based off of the PowerPoint that you inject into it. They do the planning for you. And then I pass it into Pictory saying, for this username, I need to create a video for this product, right? So highly customized video for this product. It passes it to the MCP server. They handle the generation of the scenes, the tying to the images, the using the templates, the synchronization of the voice to the scene. If you've ever done that in coding, it is actually extremely complicated to synchronize the words on the screen to the scene selection, to actually having voice that's AI voice emulated over those scenes. So it's something that they handle, all that synchronization they handle on the back end. And then when I'm happy with the video, it goes to a rendered video and I hand it off to quality assurance agents. Could be human in the loop if you want instead, but we can also use AI to be able to provide a feedback loop to those planning agents to say, I didn't quite like this phrasing, please change this phrasing and recreate the video again. And so we can create fully autonomous cycles of creating videos at scale, because onesie twosie videos, you don't need this entire big enterprise implementation. You can look at it, you can review it, you can say, I'm going to make this adjustment, you can make those changes. Or for some of you, it might just make sense to use the interface that you have on your website, on Pictory's website. Sometimes that will work for people too. But if you're looking at scale, and a scale in volumes of the hundreds, thousands as well, you want to be able to set up a platform, a process flow that you can get through those videos at scale. So that kind of ends the conversation around that that particular server. But what I would like to do now is share my screen and talk a little bit about what I just want to make sure I have the right screen here. There you go. I also want to make sure that it kind of show like, what does this look like when you're doing like an enterprise integration? Now, normally in an enterprise integration, you're not going to have a screen that looks like this, right? Because I am not a UX, I'm not a user experience or UI designer. But the point of this is showing that on the back end, typically you have something that kicks off this process to be able to create videos in bulk. But what I do have here is the ability to be able to set a goal of something that I actually want to have created. So my goal for the system that I'm going to pass into the Pictory server is create a video showcasing Pictory's MCP server, how Pictory's MCP server simplifies enterprise agentic AI workflows. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit execute workflow. And on the back end, you kind of see a bunch of stuff happening. But on the left-hand side, I simplify the process. And you'll see that I first reach out to the MCP server and I discover what tools can I use. So I'm having AI automatically determine what tools. And once I know what tools I can use, I then plan how to use them. And I say, well, I need to be able to create a video, which means I want to go to templates and gather these templates. Then what I want to do is I want to do a storyboard request. Then I need to do a render request once everything's done. And so I plan out the steps. I get those templates. I get the template details to make sure I pick the right template. And then I go to something called generate content. And that's actually using, in this instance, AI Foundry GPT-4o. You could do this with Claude. You can do this with Gemini. Any of the language models, you'd be able to have it generate content. And so that step, I'll just kind of fast forward here into the generated content. You'll see that the scene generation is automatically created on the back end. For example, it says this video is brought to you by Pictory and New Resources Consulting. And then it goes through the rest of the scenes. It goes scene 1 through 6 because I wanted 6 scenes. And then I pass that to a storyboard to create it. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the storyboard on the back end. The synchronization, the colors, the styles, the animations. All of that stuff is handled by the Pictory MCP server. I don't have to designate any of that. All I say is, here's the words that I want to have in this template, and I want you to do the synchronization for me in a voice that I want. Even cooler is I can select, have an option on here to select any voice or any language that I want. So let's say that a user's preferred language is Spanish or Arabic. I would be able to create those videos in that voice, in that language, to be able to have it be highly customized for their language of choice as well. And that all is just one setting to say Arabic with the name of the person or the voice I want to use. And it will do this exact same process every single time, but the outcome will be Arabic writing on the screen, as well as Arabic voices and enunciations for everything, which is, again, very cool. One of the steps that I think that we skipped over a little bit, and I'm happy I have my screen up here, is understanding templates. So when we talk about the video that I'm creating right now, what I do is I set up the screen and what I actually want on the screen. So you'll see here it says the Pictory logo in new resources consulting. I put in a text placeholder here called scene1_text. And that's how the template knows that it needs to inject something there. So if I go to scene 2, you'll see that there's a scene 2 text, scene 3. These are all videos that I hand curated, but I don't have to. I can let the MCP server figure it out and be able to make their own videos. In this sense, I have something I want to highly curate, and I want to be able to say, I want text applied to these screens and to these images and to these fields. And so the end result of setting up this template and using this template is going to be what this video creation was at the bottom. So this was the fully rendered video. It took about, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes to do the full render of the video. And I'm going to play it for you right now. So let me get this to play for you.
This video is brought to you by Pictory and New Resources Consulting. Meet the Pictory MCP Server, your solution for seamless enterprise AI integration and dynamic agent workflows. Eliminate custom development with natural language automation across your entire technology stack. Empower agents to interact and learn vendor platforms in real time, boosting efficiency and innovation. Standardize AI integrations to simplify complex workflows and unlock enterprise-wide potential. Discover the Pictory MCP server today and transform your enterprise AI strategy. Start now.
So the really cool part about this is that all I did was feed it in with that initial goal of it creating something for me and say, create a video showcasing this. And through using these connections and using different tool sets, I'm actually able to generate these video scenes and create that full video that you see at the bottom here, all using tools, accessing different types of servers, using their MCP server. And so, again, I can't say how much easier it was for me to integrate with this platform. Not saying that their APIs are not robust, because they're extremely robust, but the time it took me to get to a destination was within, like in an enterprise coding scenario, 24 hours versus taking weeks to be able to develop the API connections to be able to go in. And so even for enterprises, and the value to enterprises is significant when we talk about integrating with an MCP server. Mark, if you want to take the screen back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brent. That was definitely a lot of information. So we definitely want to make sure that we share the recording here so you all have a chance to go back and kind of consume it again. Because if this is the first time that you're hearing some of this, it could sound foreign to you. But at the end of the day, really, the unique selling proposition of this is speed, time to value, and being able to connect all of these various agents together to make smart decisions to create videos at scale. Vishal, do you want to kind of talk through, what future state looks like for Pictory and kind of how we see this expanding, and then we can kind of wrap this up with a few questions?
Absolutely. So I think the most important one over in this list is the cloud-hosted MCP server. Right now, as you have seen, you have to kind of install it on your machine. It does do the heavy lifting on the Pictory servers, but but you still have to call this MCP or install the MCP server inside your client within your desktop. Or in case of the demo that Brent showed, it's more within the servers. But ultimately, what you're going to have is this MCP server, which would be hosted completely, and any of even the hosted LLM clients like ChatGPT or Claude on the cloud can call it. So that's the very next step. We are going to add more input types like PPT and PDF, and integration to things like Google Drive and YouTube and so on. We plan to build this agent registry, which is kind of more custom extensions that people built and third-party integrations coming into this registry, which ultimately can be used to automate more complex workflows. And we have integrations already with no-code platforms like Zapier and Make. We recently, in fact, launched components for both Zapier and Make. But this MCP server kind of opens up a new way of automating, because now you can basically do even within Zapier and N8N and Make, you can kind of directly integrate into any MCP servers, because it can kind of query what tools are available and include it in as a part of their workflows. So yeah, those are the few things that are in the pipeline, and you'd see them soon.
As long as we're on this topic of the future, there was a question from I think it was Vic, asking about AI generated video versus pulling stock video content. So, I know Brent mentioned that you could connect Adobe Firefly and Sora and all of these other external tools, but you want to talk about, Vishal, kind of what's on our roadmap for us from an AI creation perspective?
Absolutely. And that is something that is coming very, very soon. In fact, in this quarter, we have a plan for launching generated images that you can do it within the Pictory platform. Eventually, it would also come up in our APIs and MCP server, but on the web app, you would see that very, very soon. And we also have a plan to launch generated AI videos in the next quarter. So both those things coming very, very soon.
So really quick before we go to the Q&A and kind of use up the last 10 minutes that we have here, I wanted to make sure that everyone that stayed here till the end just kind of familiarize yourselves with how to access this MCP server. So since the MCP server uses the Pictory API, you would need to have Pictory API credentials. So we now offer the ability to subscribe, get access to our Pictory API. You can go to pictory.ai/Pictory API to see the API page, look at the pricing, the available credits. By default, you get 120 credits or 120 minutes per month. And as a thank you for anyone that's attending today, if you sign up for the API, you can use the code MCP webinar for an additional 120 minutes per month. So you would double your number of minutes or your number of credits. So you'd be able to get 240 minutes per month by using that code. So again, pictory.ai, you can click on the top under enterprise. I think it's the API dropdown. Take a look at the page. It kind of goes over what's capable with the API, and then ultimately be able to use the MCP server, Make.com, Zapier, all of these low-code, no-code platforms as well with that single API key. So questions. We've had some questions that have come in through the chat, and I wanted to kind of go back and take a look at those. So we had one question. Yeah.
Mark, Well, one thing that Jason asked is like, hey, you guys were just using, we had some like just using B-roll. How to integrate like Gen AI and people's own assets, and what are we seeing enterprises do to really make them enterprise ready? So this was obviously just a kind of a generic example and just using the
Yeah.
basic stuff. But can you talk about how enterprises are using a lot of the different content to make them enterprise ready? And maybe we'll send out some examples after the call.
Yeah, Brent, do you want to talk about some of your experience with that and enterprises being able to use their own imagery, AI generated images, etc.?
If I hit the unmute button, that'd be helpful. So yes, I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about that. So these are all really, by the way, these are all really good questions that I'm seeing kind of in the Q&A and also in the general chat. So keep the questions coming. It's really good to get clarity here. So the first part of that was like the actual video quality. These are rendered into very high quality. And so one of the ways that I've used this tool before is for like product images and product descriptions. So if you have a product-centric type of website, we're able to get like your customer reviews, we're able to pull in the product details, and we're actually able to refine those product details and stitch everything together off of that site. And so the branding or creating those templates is probably the biggest differentiator. Now, I did a very, very simple template, as you kind of saw. There are full-blown animation of being able to stitch different things together, have text fly in, have different graphics fly down. There's this whole orchestration that you can build out in these templates. And Pictory actually does have a dedicated template person. In fact, which is even cooler about this, I just saw this week you guys released your Pictory template library that has pre-made Pictory templates that you can select from that are all very professional. And so you're able to kind of accelerate that approach and then make sure the colors kind of align to your branding, your color scheme, and then put a logo at the end. I did one for a fitness company that was real recent, that they wanted to be able to advertise new programs to their senior members. And so it was the person's name, talked about the new programs, and then we dynamically pulled in their closest location to the fitness center closest to them and someone to reach out to at that location. And so when we talk about like highly customizing and even for like geographic alignment, we're able to actually have those videos be aligned to the local center that they're trying to promote to get more people in their doors. And so those are just two examples. I probably have hundreds of examples of things that I've done before, but I want to make sure that we address other questions. And how do you curate? Hopefully that answered how you curate a better result. It's through the templates. It's really spending some time in the template creation and making sure that it looks good. And I did landscape. You can also do portrait. So you can actually do different presentations based on the consumption medium, whether it's on a phone, on a vertical screen, or if it's in a YouTube, as I saw, I think Tracy asked about YouTube posting.
And I'll
Yeah.
just add to what Brent said, a couple of things. One is that you can use your own assets as well. We have a whole system where if you are an enterprise and you have a whole bunch of assets, we can auto index all of that, and we can maintain the whole library and build the videos using your assets only. And we can mix it up with the stock assets if you want that. So all of that that automation is possible. Also, to add to the video quality thing, Brent mentioned templates, and we launched instant templates recently. There's hundreds of them. You can go and look at how professionally they are created and use them in your videos. But also we are launching this whole concept of smart templates, which basically means that it'll automatically determine AI-based templating, which will kind of look at your script and create the entire video in a templatized format on its own.
Yeah. So I know there are some questions about like the YouTube upload. Yes, you can absolutely connect, an automatic uploader to publish these videos to YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, any of those various locations. So there's definitely API connections for all of that. There was a question about translation. So I think Brent touched on that previously. You know, you can specify, create this video in English, Spanish, Dutch, German, French, you know, basically give it all of those criteria, and then it would create that script in those multiple languages. And then Pictory would identify and understand the language in which that script is written and automatically assign a voice that it reads the video in that language with the subtitles on screen, and all of that stuff happens on the back end. So there's lots of different capabilities there. And then as far as like getting access to this, as soon as you have your Pictory API credentials, you'd be able to utilize the MCP server. So we'll follow up with each and every one of you on how you can get API credentials, how you can install the MCP server, you know, different resources as well. But I know we're almost at time here. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Vishal, Brent for spending some time today. Thank you to all of the people that tuned in to watch this. So again, as a reminder, we're giving away 120 free credits when you sign up for the Pictory API. So instead of having 120, you'll now have 240 just by using that code MCP webinar at checkout when you're subscribing to the Pictory API. It is different than the web app subscription, so it is a different process. There's actually even more capabilities with the API than we have with our UI. So if you have any questions about that, definitely I'm happy to answer those. You can send me an email, mark@pictory.ai. So feel free to email me directly, and I can put that here in the chat really quick. But thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it. And we'll be following up with everyone with this recording in the next 24 hours.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.